Welcome back to the Heroic Nation podcast, the greatest podcast of all time. I don't think I'm understating that or overselling it. It's just facts here, people, just facts. As my kids would say, facts, no printer. It's literally the dumbest thing I've ever said on recording, and one of the dumbest things I've ever heard stated by a human being. Anyway, that's my kids for you. All right, Gen Z shit. Okay, here's what kind of like my notes are. You can see them right here if you were looking on the YouTube. Not a ton of stuff to go over, but some questions that were asked based on the last. I went into a little bit more depth than I kind of planned on as far as breathing, and I had some people that reached out and were just like, all right, basically I just box breathe, right? When you're talking about like the gear system, aerobic work, breath work, and the technicality of it, like you can really nerd out in it. And box breathing is totally fine. Like that is a style of breathing. But what bothers me, what annoys me, is when especially like like cops, we do this all the time, where it's like there's an idea that we need to learn, right? There's a concept that we need to learn, but we dumb it down. Like we dumb it down for ourselves, and it pisses me off. It's like the whole notion of excited delirium, right? If you are not aware, I'm not trying to oh, look how smart I am, like Lane Norton. But always mentioning I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. Yeah, we all fucking know you're a doctor, Lane. Everybody in the world knows who you are and that you're a doctor, and that if you're not a doctor, you're a dipshit. All right. Everybody's clear on that watching your channel. You only talk to doctors, you only talk to people that are you feel are an educational equivalent to you, right? I'm not trying to do that, but I do have a background in psychology, and I have a master's in psych, right? Which isn't like a doctorate or anything crazy, but it is an advanced degree. So anyway, point being, excited delirium. Excited delirium is not a diagnosable thing. It is not a recognizable thing inside of psychology, last I checked, right? So like what we do is we take these ideas of like psychosis and drug-induced psychosis and substance abuse and schizophrenia and like all these different things, and we just throw it into a catch-all term, and it is excited delirium. Like that's not like a thing that is recognizable, but we do it because we dumb it down for ourselves, and I don't think we have to. Point being, like we're not morons, like we're police officers, but we're not idiots. So like don't treat us like idiots, right? Treat us like educational peers, right? You have information I need. I need to be able to understand these concepts in ways that like, but you can't just create like, oh, hey, here's a term for smart people, and here's a term for all you other idiots out there. Like that bothers me. Anyway, why'd I go into that? All right. So combat breathing. Okay. So what is combat breathing? Combat breathing is a style of box breathing. Typically, we're talking about like you do a 4-second inhale, 4-second hold, 4-second exhale, 4-second hold. Okay. So that's like a combat breath. That's a box breath pattern. And you can make that box breathing any type of way that you want. It can be 5 in, 5 hold, 5x, 5 hold, right? So you can increase that by 10 seconds and do 10, 10, 10, 10. So what we're looking at is like, what is that? Okay. So it is combat breathing, right? Is box breathing. They just put it into combat terms, um, you know, to a way that will keep your attention and just repackage it, right? That's what we always do with everything, to be fair. But I think that we can handle understanding like, hey, there's stuff you do to bring your central nervous system down, parasympathetic, rest and digest, and we can breathe specifically to harness it and ramp it up. Sympathetic, fight or flight. Okay, we can do that, and we can do it on purpose. And you can understand that there's these parts of your nervous system and how they work and how they operate. So if you don't understand those components, then it doesn't matter what you call it, it's not going to be as effective, right? As it could be or should be. So like what we are talking about is state management. And that's the big thing to understand, right? Is state management. What state am I in currently? And how do I use that to my advantage? or change it so that I can be in an advantageous position. All right. Um, so this is my, if you're watching on YouTube, this is my nasty ass Red Wings hat. Um, all right. It's been around for generations. All right. So, like understanding your state, understanding whether you want to be in that state or not, and then understanding how to change it if you don't want to be there, and then how to leverage it if you are. Like that is the thing that needs to happen, right? Am I freaking out? Do I need to freak out? Yes. Okay, cool. I'm fighting a bear. All right. So freak out, win, fight the bear. Okay. And then if you're freaking out when you're not fighting the bear, that's a problem. All right. So then you need to understand like I'm freaking out. There's no bear here. There's no person here. I'm not in a gunfight. I'm not in, a life or death, like, situation. I don't need to be here. Okay. So what do I do to harness that? Box breathing pattern is something you can do to do that, right? That's why we use those style of breathing patterns is to harness our nervous system and bring it down, right? Another style you can do is a double inhale with a slow exhale. Typically, if you exhale for longer than like I've heard it 7 seconds, but if you exhale for longer than I would say anywhere in the realm of 5 to 10 second exhale, slow exhale, especially nasal only, you're going to automatically start to crash out and access your parasympathetic nervous system, which is typically what we want to do. Like very rarely do we want to, and in specific instances, do we want to access our sympathetic nervous system on purpose. Before a lift, before we were going into like a planned fight, something like that, like where you want to like start working on superventilating and hyperventilating and getting that ramped up. Like that has its place, right? But it is for a very specific thing. Um, typically it just kind of happens on its own, and we need to be able to control it and keep it in check, make sure that it's like the the train's not on a runaway, like we have control, we have brakes on it, we know how to access brakes to that system, because if we don't it's going to derail, right? And it just matters when. It could be in that moment, it could be down the line, it could be all of a sudden like you can't sleep and you don't understand why your anxiety is just like taking over, right? And this is something like I don't have really planned today, but you talk about like PTSD and lack of sleep, and like, oh man, that becomes like a feedback loop, negative feedback loop, I believe, is where it's like I have anxiety. I go to sleep, but I wake up early, right? Like, this is typically what happens to me when I can't sleep and my anxiety kicks in. So I get to sleep okay, but I wake up at like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and I'm wired. And my mind is racing. I'm ruminating. I can't. I've got all these things that need to get done. I'm worried about everything under the sun, and I cannot get back to sleep. So what do I have to do? I have to harness that nervous system, which is on a runaway path to hell. Okay. And if I sit there and I let it go, then it's going to continue to spiral, and these thoughts and stories are going to continue to escalate. And I'm done, man. I'm done. And then you do that for like 2 3 4 days, or 2 3 4 weeks, let's say, with like very broken 2 3 hours of sleep a night. And what do you think is going to happen to your mental health, physical health, immune system? It's broken. Like you're going to break from the inside out, and it's starting right here between the ears. So if you do things like box breathing, slow exhales, what I have here is like double inhale and slow exhale. Okay, so that looks and sounds something like this, where you go. Okay, so it's like two sniffs, like sniff, sniff, hold for a brief second, and then slow exhale on the way down. Right. This is something I use in sniper training. Okay, so when I really want to get like a cleansing breath, and find that respiratory pausing, right? Double inhale, and then exhale, hold, boom, pull the trigger. Okay, so that's a specific use for this in order to calm down in a specific moment, but you can also do it just to harness things as they start to get out of control. Like if you feel like, oh shit, things are going crazy, I'm starting to panic, I'm starting to ruminate, I can't sleep, like blah blah blah, whatever your symptoms are, then double inhale, quick hold and exhale for 5 to 10 seconds. Double inhale, quick hold, exhale, 5 to 10 seconds, right? Even just doing that 2, 3 times will regulate your state. It'll control your state. It'll just put some brakes on, right? You'll start to apply the brakes. You'll actually find where the brakes are. And then once you do that, then you're like, all right, cool. I can kind of control this. I can pull some levers. I feel more in charge. That internal locus of control starts to kick in versus the external, right? Where it's like, ah, no, I got some pull in this. I got a dog in this fight. This isn't just happening to me. I can control it, right? Or I can start to control it. And even that little bit of control, like puts you back in the driver's seat, and you're like, no, no, I got this. Okay. Um, so that's really really important to understand, and it's more than just combat breathing, right? Because like combat breathing, just knowing combat breathing is only going to take you so far. It's not going to really move the needle in a grand scheme, in a big picture. It won't. It might help you in a specific moment for a brief second, but it's not going to it's not going to move the needle. I really don't think so. You have to understand a little bit more. And the kick to me is always like, hey, we are a smart enough population to understand this shit. Don't talk to me like I'm a dummy or I'm a kid. Like, give me the full picture, okay, so I can understand it and I can do what I need to do, right? Um, so, all right, last thing I'm gonna say about this is cold exposure. Okay, so cold exposures are fantastic for a bunch of things, right? Both psychologically, physiologically, all of it, right? But where I think that we miss the mark, and we are so worried about the physiological effects of dopamine and neurotransmitters and all that stuff, which it does have amazing effects on that. But to me, that's secondary. Like you can listen to Andrew Huberman and find all that stuff out, right? He goes into depth on that, right? He's got numerous podcasts, numerous times he talks about cold exposures, some great stuff on there, right? Very beneficial. Where it's more important, my opinion, is for state management. Because when you get into an ice bath, when you jump into cold water, when you are exposed to that cold on that level, your body goes straight sympathetic. It goes straight to fight or flight, and you cannot stop that. You can't, right? Your body doesn't want to be there. It recognizes the fact that it is a massive threat. Freezing to death is a massive threat to your survival. So it is going to shift you into fight or flight. Like that's what will happen every single time. Every time. That's why you don't want to do it. If you've done cold exposures regularly, you know that they're never fun. It's never exciting to get into. You never want to do it, right? Because you know that that's going to be a terrifying, awful feeling. Okay. Um, but we're doing it on purpose. All right. And that's the thing. Like you do it, it kicks you into that overdrive, that sympathetic state. And then you get to learn to harness your state. And that is where all of this really kind of comes together, in my opinion, is you put yourself sympathetic on purpose in a state that you're not going to die, right? You have control over it. You can get out of that thing anytime you want, but you are choosing to stay there and you are choosing to navigate that and learning to calm down quickly. All right. That is exactly like work. That is exactly like doing a traffic stop. I am choosing to do this. I could leave anytime I want. I can shut these lights off and drive away. But I am choosing to do this. I am choosing to put myself in this state, in this moment, at this time, and I'm going to navigate this. Okay? I'm choosing it. Now I need to learn how to control that sympathetic state. I need to learn if I want it, how I want to use it, and when to back it down. Okay? So get into the ice and start to work on double inhale, slow exhale, box breathing, nasal breathing. Like that's a first thing to do. Get into the ice, nasal breathe. All right. Try to keep just nasal breathing. And then you try to count your breaths and slow down. Okay. you spend, I typically do 3 minutes. Okay. So if I'm 3 minutes, I'm shooting for 10 to 20 breaths total. That's including when I get in, when it's like, there's three. Okay. All nasal breathing, calm yourself down as quickly as you can. Now, if you can do that, then when you get a hot run, you get a call, then you know, nasal breathe, double inhale, exhale, box breathe, whatever the technique is that you decide that you like the best, right? That you know can control your nervous system the best. And you can take yourself down and you can control yourself and keep yourself out of condition black, and put it into a more usable area of sympathetic state, right? Because you don't want to be gone. You don't want to be out of sympathetic state. It's not going to happen anyway, when you're in that environment. But you do need to control it, right? Because maybe you need it, if we're talking about like a scale of 1 to 10. Remember, this is a spectrum. It's not it's not a light switch like on off. Okay, you're not like all sympathetic, all parasympathetic. Like it's not like that. You are always some of both. So if you think of it on like a scale of 1 to 10, let's say, right? And it's like, all right, you get a call to a run and it's a shooting and you need it to be a 5, right? You don't need it to be a 1 because you're not gonna be on your game enough to navigate the stressful drive there. You need the sympathetic state. You need the things that gives you. So you don't want to be a 1 or a 0, right? You don't want that, but you also don't want to be an 11 where it's like you are just like you're out of control. Okay. Um, or you can't move, right? Because fight, flight, or freeze. All right. That happens too. We see that on the job a lot too, where it's like, why didn't you, especially new guys, like, why didn't you do anything? Deer in the headlights moment, man. Like, that's what that is. That's like your nervous system's pegged and you can't move. Okay. That's really maladaptive for what we do, obviously. But, yeah, so like you need some of it. So you have to be able to harness it, control it, bring it down to where it needs to be and leave it there. All right. And then maybe you show up on scene and it's like, oh, this shooting is still going on. And it's like, okay, well, I'm about to engage in a gunfight or something to that effect. It's like, okay, now you need like an 8, 9, 10, and deal with that very acute problem immediately. And then you need to harness it and pull it back down, right? Once you survive that incident. So that's where understanding all of these things together collectively, like that's where it's gonna help. And then on the back end of that, so it's like say you get through that incident, right? Like, you know, these things that we do don't go, you're not coming out unscathed physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. Like it leaves marks. And that's just to be expected. That's a whole nother conversation too, is expectations on this job. But um, like understanding what your nervous system is doing on the back end of that. So again, like if you're not in the gunfight, you don't need to be responding like you are. And if you notice that you are, like there's nothing wrong with you. It's just your nervous system's kind of like out of whack. So just suck it back in, right? Figure it out. Like what's happening? What state am I in? Do I want to be here? And then you know how to fix it. Like that solves a lot of problems right there. Um, there's not too many people that have been like, man, I wish I didn't know how to calm down when I was feeling out of control, or I was feeling like too ramped up. I wish I didn't know how to do that. That doesn't happen. Okay. So like, no one's made worse decisions by being more calm. So learning how to calm yourself is and like calm yourself, like calm, when I say that, I mean calm your nervous system, calm your nervous system down, because that's like our nervous system it just dictates so much to us that we don't even really understand. And so much that I don't understand, and then it changes over time, which is like a constant puzzle that's you're always putting together. But yeah, when you talk about mental health, like a lot of it is just understanding your nervous system, I feel like, and then how you can operate better based on just understanding how to operate your nervous system, right? And same thing goes of training. And this is something I wish I would have understood with when I was doing CrossFit, so many years ago, like a lifetime ago. Like I would have managed to gain 2 to 3 years of competitive CrossFit, I feel like, if I would have understood this information about nervous system and adaptation and where I want to be and where I was and versus where I thought I was and burning stuff down and like training too hard and like how to actually train hard without burning yourself down. Okay, that is possible, right? And people are getting a lot better about that now. So anyway, that's another talk. All right, 21-day challenge info. Right. Before we move on, if you got more questions on state management, nervous system, stuff like that, like just message me. We can go into specifics and then or post on school, right? Post the questions on school, even better. And then I'll go over it right there. I'll put looms up. We'll put classroom stuff up. So and that'll help develop content too. If you're interested in getting into the greatest platform that's ever been on school, our community, Heroic Industries, to go along with the greatest podcast of all time, then just click the link somewhere on this. If you're watching on YouTube, then or just search on school for Heroic Industries. You can go to school, download the app. You're going to need it anyway to get in, and then just look for Heroic Industries free community, and it's going to have all this information on there, more stuff from me and the rest of the people that are in the community, like all based on physical training, physical health, mental training, mental health for first responders specifically. And then this, like you can tell, this information is good for anybody as well. So if you got anybody that you think would be interested or is real high stress and needs to recover or needs to work out, like that kind of stuff, injury prevention, like or recovery from injury surgeries. I've had plenty of those. Then yeah, it's all covered in there. So join. Love to have you. Join, please. All right. Also in school, 21-day challenge that starts on Monday. So just about a week. We're about 6 days out from that. So 6/17 at 1200 hours. It'll be alive just like we're doing here. That'll be our kickoff. Here's the structure. Structure is going to be a mini progressive cut. 3-day mini cycles. Okay, so into a 20% deficit. So it's not going to be an absolute just slash and burn, right? This is going to be a quick progressive attack, right? Three mini cycle, 3-day mini cycle for 3 weeks. Okay. And that'll make more sense once you get into it. I'm not going to go over all the details in it right now, but that will be inside the group. So if you are interested in that, it's totally free. I'd love to have you, right? 21 days, 3 weeks. And it's this thing has been proven time and again to be very effective with quick control of diet and weight loss, and like usually 7 to 13 pounds people are losing. And honestly, most of it's not body fat necessarily, but people are losing like 1 to 3 pounds of body fat per week and gaining some muscle with the workouts all at the same time. So we're keeping protein high and again, not going into too many of the details here because that's not what I want to do today. But yeah, so keeping protein high and cutting calories progressively, that tends to lend itself to really good body fat loss and really effective keeping muscle, if not gaining a little bit of muscle, which is always bonus points, right? Get shredded and gain some muscle. All right. Okay. So there's that. That's the structure. How to navigate a cut. Okay. So this is something that we'll talk about more in there, but I was listening to a podcast and Jordan Peterson's podcast 454 with John Spencer. He was an expert in urban warfare and a really cool episode. Talks about a lot of urban warfare. And he mentioned something that I always try to look for universal truths. Okay. So as much as this doesn't really connect, it does at the same time. And he talked about like when in war you attack quick and win before public opinion destroys you, especially in today's like social media market and stuff like that, where like psyops and shit are just everywhere. Okay. And propaganda and how quickly and easily it is to disseminate and absorb and not even understand what's going on, right? So like public opinion will destroy your war effort. So you want to get in, smash them, get done, hit the objective, and get out, right? Before this victimizer narrative starts to flip, okay? Because that's what'll happen. and this works on an internal level as well, right? So I'm listening to that and I'm like, oh, that's exactly how we talk about like dealing with a deficit. All right, how do we lose weight? Well, you get in, you have a huge fight with it, and then you get the fuck out. Okay, so you smash a deficit quick for like 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, there's different ways you can effectively do this too. There's the Matador study, I believe, is like 2 days in maintenance, like something like that, or 2 days, 2 weeks, something like that. But it was similar where it's like you get into a deficit, you stay there, you get out, you go to maintenance, and then you dip back and forth, right? So you can do that on a daily level, on a weekly level, and that's going to be effective, right? That's going to be effective. Okay. Assuming, right, once you get out of that deficit, so you get in, you smash it 2 to 3 weeks. That's what we're doing, right? 2 to 3 weeks. So we say 2 to 3 weeks in a deficit, and we're looking at 21 days. So, like, again, details to come, but roughly like 3 weeks in a deficit. And then you get out. You spend a week to 2 weeks in maintenance, not surplus, maintenance. And this is where understanding numbers gets into it. And then we'll go over that in the program, in the 21-day challenge. You stay in maintenance, right? So you're not gaining, you're not losing, right? But it's a lot more manageable. Okay. Maintenance is a lot nicer than a deficit. Deficits hurt, deficits suck. And that's okay, but that just is what it is, right? But at the same time, you're in maintenance, you're continuing to focus on increasing lifestyle and sleep and food quality rather than like, just gut check, grind it out, don't eat. Um, like, because that wears you out. Okay. But you focus on being healthy without being in a deficit, and that's still going to make changes. Okay. Especially if you've got inflammation, water weight, stuff like that, just hanging on. Like, if you work on cleaning things up, that's going to do a whole lot to your body composition, just that. Okay. So there's stuff that you can work on not being in a deficit that will help you lose weight. Okay. And so you don't always have to be looking at like reducing calories, reducing calories, reducing calories. Maybe you do, but usually it's like you do that for a little bit, you get out, you work on lifestyle, you improve lifestyle, you clean things up, and then you get back into a deficit, right? If you still have weight to lose. Um, so 2 to 3 weeks in, smash it, get to a deficit, and then 1 to 2 weeks out, focusing on lifestyle, food quality, clean things up, and then back in a deficit, smash it again, right? And then you do this basically up, down, up, down, up, down for a series of time, right? See where it gets you, and then decide on like what you want to do from there as far as goals. Okay. On the back end of this is like further down the road. Like, most people don't have a weight loss issue. They have a consistency issue with their entire life. So it's like you have no problem losing weight, you have a problem keeping it off because it usually comes back. So it's like, why does it come back? Like, okay, well, it's not the issue of like being able to get into a deficit, stay there and lose the weight, right? That's happened several times, but it's the issue of like, how do I stay in maintenance? How do I set goals for future stuff? Like, you can't just like set a goal, hit a goal, and then just like, cool, I'm done. Like, you're not done. That's not how it works. You have to continue to set goals and be progressive with it, right? Regardless of what that is, or you're going to wind up in the same boat that you currently are. Okay. So anyway, that's like how to set goals, stuff like that, which we also talk about. All right. So here's what's going to happen if you stay in a deficit too long. All right. So like if you're worried, like, well, that's not going to be long enough. Well, maybe not. That's why you do these cycles, right? That's why you do things in like 2, 3 weeks at a time, and then 1 to 2 weeks out, and then 2, 3 weeks at a time, then 1 to 2 weeks out, right? And then you just like cycle like that, right? Waves. Okay, waves of attacks. Uh, but if you just stay in a sustained deficit, all right, um, here's the things that's going to happen, right? Amongst other things, here's some things that just jump to my mind and things that I've seen and experienced myself, as well as clients, right? And athletes that I've coached and taught. You start to feel sorry for yourself. So you talk about that, like going back to that public opinion, like and how the victim victimizer mindset shifts. You're like, oh man, this is so hard. I'm so tired. I'm so hungry. And you start feeling sorry for yourself. Like, hey, you didn't feel sorry for yourself when you started. You were on fire about it. So what's changed? Okay. Well, you've been in it too long, right? It's kind of worn you out, right? Depending on your level of like, like discipline or willpower, whatever you want to call it, like that's a muscle too. You have to train that. That just doesn't happen. People aren't born with like super impressive like powers of will, you know. That's created over time and worked on. Okay. So you start to feel sorry for yourself. You start to give up. Okay. I'm too tired to continue to fight. Okay. That happens. And then it's like, and how does that look? It looks like, man, I'm so sick of being in this freaking place where I'm hungry all the time. I'm not happy, mad, about a million things. There's a million little irritating things that are now like really irritating because I'm fucking hungry. And I've been hungry for a month. All right. And then how many times in that state that you're in, again, state, right? Can you walk by the cookies at the office or the outpost or, have somebody like giving you food like wherever, right? Dropping off, like chocolates to the station and saying like, here, thanks for your help. Like how many times can you walk by that tray and say no? Two, three, as you get worn down, it's going to be one. And then you're going to be like, screw it. These are mine. And I'm off the wagon. All right. To go along with that, like the idea and concept that you deserve to have a cheat. Okay. Like you deserve it. Like you don't deserve it. Like you didn't earn it. It's not a cheat, whatever, man. Like like be an adult, right? You made a decision to have this. Like you didn't like you just decided. Like, and it does have a consequence, good, bad, or otherwise, right? And then understanding like when is a good time to put that stuff in. How do you navigate having less quality, not cheating, but like having a lower quality food item? Like, can you fit it in? Should you fit it in? Where should you fit it in? Right? Choosing it specifically for a purpose and a reason, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, because all those components are important when we talk about nutrition, training, all that kind of stuff. Like, it's not just the physical. That's not just that. It's like emotionally and psychologically, I need a freaking cookie. Like, well, do you? For one, we can have that conversation, but all right, maybe, like where can we put it that's going to make sense? And like it's like taking a deload week, like, all right, do you need a deload week? At some point you're gonna, like you're gonna need to take a break from what you're doing and do something different. Like that looks different for everybody based on training and stuff, but like you're gonna need it. You can't just do the same thing forever. That's why sports have seasons, stuff like that. That's why baseball players that play all year round have Tommy John surgery, right? So like that's why those things happen. This is again natural laws and universal rules, right? Universal things that are all common. Okay. You need a break. You got a break. You got to do something different. Like where can you put in a cookie or a lower quality meal or a pizza or whatever, man? Like you can do it. It is possible. I do it. Okay. So, um, like, where can you put it? All right. So I deserve something. Like, nah, go screw off. Like, you don't deserve it. Nobody deserves anything. Um, but the idea of like, yeah, you don't deserve it, but you do need a break and you have worked hard, so like, where can you put it that's going to make sense? Um, for reinforcement. But the idea that you deserve something just because you've worked hard, like, no, that's not like a real thing. That just leads to like all kinds of bad stuff, right? All right. So last couple things, losing focus and losing interest. This is where we talk about motivation is really high at the beginning of a journey and it's really low at the end, like not even at the end, like in the middle typically. Like this is where we start looking at the problem of the middle. So like I guarantee this will happen. We start this 21-day challenge and it'll go gangbusters for a week, right? 7 to 10 days. When we hit that 10-day point, it'll be like people just crap out and fall off. It is the problem of the middle. So it doesn't matter if it's a 21-day program or a 21-week program or a 21-year program. When you hit that midway point, people freak. Okay. Just what we do. All right. Think about a workout that you've done. Right. This used to happen in CrossFit to me all the time. Right. It's an 8-minute AMRAP, 8 minutes, as many rounds and reps as possible in 8 minutes of whatever. Pick movement, doesn't matter. Okay. When I hit the 4-minute mark, you're like, oh, geez, I'm too far away from the beginning for it to be really fun anymore. It now burns and hurts, and I'm too far away from the end to really see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I gotta just continue to hurt, right? You can't lose focus. Okay. So if you stay in a deficit for too long, the middle becomes, it becomes very hard to navigate because you don't see an end. And you don't understand a bigger picture. It's like, oh, I just need to keep working and keep going. Like there's, and with that, there's probably no plan either. Okay. So what happens then? What happens then is you pick up your phone and you start looking at things, and all of a sudden you're getting advertised to by all kinds of other shit. And then you're like, oh, this looks good. This guy looks good. This good looks good. This program looks nice. Like maybe that'll help me. Maybe that'll be the thing. I do it. Like I don't even realize I'm doing it. And I'm like, no, I need to stay the course and do what I'm doing. Right. Stay the course, do what I'm doing. Like punch the clock, finish my program. Punch the clock, finish what I said. Right. That's where it goes back to goal setting and knowing what the purpose is, knowing what the duration is, knowing what the all these details, right, about it. So if we just like head into something where it's like, man, let's see how it goes, like it's probably gonna suck. You know what I mean? Like it'll be fun at first, like maybe you'll learn a little bit, but it's not gonna be effective. Okay, it's not gonna get you to where you want to go. You start chasing these shiny objects. It's like boom, 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 and then you get to the middle, you quit, you start something different. You get to the middle, you quit, you start something different. Then you're like, I don't know why I can't find results. Like you can't find results because you never fucking finish anything. Okay. So finish it, right? Whatever the duration is, finish it. And that's where these 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 week mini cycles, like that's where it's like, all right, now we're starting to develop some consistency in, out, maintenance, back in, deal with it, get out, maintenance. Okay. And then it tends to go pretty good until you get to where you want to go. And then you set another goal. Okay. So without doing that, like you're just a lost ball bouncing around. Okay. And that's no fun. Like, well, sometimes that's fun, but it's but it's fun for a short period of time until you get lost. And then you're like, I don't know how to get out of this, man. So anyway, all right, that is it. I think that's all I got. Yeah, and that's just a blank page. Okay, so if you got questions on any of this, get into school, post the questions in school in the general forum, right? That'll be even better. That'll be the best way to do it. And then we kick this thing off on the 17th. Can't wait to have you guys in. And till then, lift a rug. All right, later.